Most of those buildings are simply devoted to cooling the central building where this stuff is kept.
So tell me, like, that moment when you're standing there and you see those buildings. You write in your article that you heard something coming in from the distance.
Well, one of the old sort of myths of the conspiracy theorist, the paranoid nut, was that there exist these things called black helicopters, dark, monstrous craft used by the government to do who knows what. Of course, we know now because of the bin Laden raid that stealth helicopters do exist, but I'm standing in this field outside this data center at night, and all of a sudden we hear this very faint, very sort of suppressed thwopping sound. And look up, and over us we can sort of see just the barest outline of some sort of craft, and quite distinctly a tiny blinking red light. And here was this, all but invisible helicopter hovering over us, directly over us as we stood on the edge of this thing. I was there in search of metaphors, and I really got one. Here was this invisible craft, barely discernible, probably able to scan the information in the phone inside my pocket. I mean, that technology exists. It's called Stingray. There are fake cell phone towers all over the country, and in aircraft that the FBI flies that can sort of pick up cell phone locations and so on.
Hey, it's Manoush in the studio here. Just jumping in to say, we actually did an episode about stingrays with Jad Abumrad from Radiolab. Just go back in your podcast feed to June. Okay, back to Walter.
This thing was probably reading that. There was every reason to believe it could have gotten my identity out of, the device in my pocket, relayed it to headquarters, found out who I was, and then it flew away ultimately. And
maybe they just said, oh, he's some literary guy. He writes screenplays. Don't worry about him.
Well, I was almost insulted by how little time it spent. I would have liked it to, land and take me into custody at least. But, I went on this little adventure, this sort of gonzo journalistic errand, because I wanted to feel, in an emotional way, up close, the presence of this surveillance state, which is so dispersed and abstract that we almost feel it's the air we breathe.
As I'm sitting here talking to you, I just looked up the definition, the official definition of paranoia, and it says suspicion and mistrust of people or their actions without evidence or justification. Now,
yes,
we're starting to have
yes.
the evidence and justification, which means that we just are left with suspicion and mistrust of people or their actions, which sounds like, actually, let's just call that fear. And yet, we're not living in a country that feels overtaken by fear. Not at all. I mean, you look at Facebook, if anything, it looks mostly like shiny, happy people, right?
I wonder about that, strangely. Yes, it looks as though we are confidently and voluntarily giving up every last bit of private information to the web. It looks as though the last thing we fear is having our privacy invaded. But I've started to wonder if whether it's a kind of you can't fire me, I quit reaction. That in a world where we don't expect privacy, in a world where the default setting is you can find out anything about me, we want to be in control of our image. And a generation that's trained to make itself look good on Facebook is really, in fact,